Zoro, Usopp, Frankie, and Robin are incognito inside Wano Country, with Zoro posing as a Ronin, Usopp works as a merchant, Frankie as a carpenter, and Robin trains as a geisha. One night, Zoro is arrested for street murders, and on the next day, he is sentenced to commit seppuku. Deducing that the magistrate is the culprit, Zoro attacks him and his men, and elsewhere, Luffy and the Thousand Sunny wash up on a beach. While fighting the magistrate's men, Zoro retrieves his swords and demolishes their home, thus becoming a wanted man. Back at Curry Beach, Kamakyo and Hihimaru are fighting near the Thousand Sunny. Two beasts pirates arrive with a captive girl and try to capture Luffy, but he easily defeats them and frees her, who introduces herself as Tama and tames Hihimaru and becomes friends with Luffy. After securing the Sunny, Otama takes Luffy to the house where she lives with her master, the swordsmith Tenryama Hitetsu, and prepares him a meal to thank him, but walks away when her stomach started growling. The capital is the only place that is not a desolate land, but the two still live there waiting for the return of the pirate, Ace. Luffy reveals to them that unfortunately they waited in vain since Ace died, and Hitetsu explains that after he got wrecked on the island, Ace helped them 4 years earlier during a famine. Meanwhile, Basil Hawkins, now a subject of Kaido, goes to investigate the soldiers defeated by Luffy. He and Kamakyo leave Hitetsu to take Tama to a doctor while at a wasteland. Zoro saves a woman from two beasts pirates, and some time later, he reunites with Luffy at the place, only to soon be confronted by Hawkins. The two fight against Hawkins' men, until their captain eventually steps in and displays his powers to them. Kamakyo grabs Luffy and Zoro and runs from the battle, but Hawkins pursues them. As Kamakyo flees with them and the ill Tama, Hawkins chases them with the straw entity. Zoro defends against its attacks and eventually defeats it. After the group escapes from Hawkins, Tsuru, who had been hiding inside Kamakyo's tail, reveals herself and invites the group to her tea house in Okabor town, where she can help Tama. Luffy, Tsuru and Kiku prepares the medicine for Tama, with Kiku also bandaging up Zoro after he sustained injury during the battle with Hawkins. After Tama recovers, Tsuru treats her sweet red bean soup, where she declares that this is the best birthday ever. Luffy and Zoro learns from Tsuru how Kaido and Orochi pollute the environment and turn Wano into a wasteland and the people are starving. Batman attacked Tsuru, but is saved by Zoro, while Tama is abducted by Gazelle Man in the confusion. Luffy, Zoro and Kiku chase after him, riding on Kamakyo, but they fail to catch up. He arrived in Hold'em's residence in Bakura town, the town where Oroshi's officials and men of Kaido lives. He hands Tama over to Hold'em, one of 3 headliners ruling over the town. Luffy's group arrived at the entrance but are stopped by the guards. Bippo, Sachi and Penguin see them and they run to find Law, who is chilling in an abandoned building, and inform him that Luffy had appeared at the entrance of Bakura. Luffy, Zoro, Kiku, and Kamakyo enter to rescue Tama after Luffy knocked out the guards with his Haoshiku Haki. They later come across Urashima participating in sumo matches. Where Urashima's men grab Kiku and bring her to the ring, Kiku rejects him by cutting off his topknot. Enraged, Urashima attacks Kiku, but Luffy steps in and clashes with him. The two fight in a sumo match, but when Hold'em tries to pull off Tama's cheek, Luffy sends Urashima crashing into his residence. The trio fight against the attacking beasts pirates and their samurai allies. Luffy calls out to Hold'em, who approaches his group while holding Tama hostage. He continues to taunt them, threatening to chew her up with Kamihiro. Kiku warns Luffy against attacking Hold'em as Curry is ruled by Jack, and he will destroy Bakura town if they fight back. Speed arrive with the treasure ship of food from Paradise Farm and Luffy orders Zoro to steal the food cart, which he does with Kiku's help. Luffy proceeds to punch Kamihiro and rescue Tama, and when he sees the injuries on her cheek from being pulled by Hold'em with a pincer, he goes into a rage and punches the man with Red Hawk, causing Tama to see Ace in him. After defeating Hold'em, Luffy grabs her and flees the scene, and during the escape, they encounter Speed and Tama tames her to catch up to Zoro, Kiku, and Kamakyo as the latter 3 were fleeing with the stolen food cart. Meanwhile, Law fights Hawkins, but their battle is interrupted when the food cart passes by them, and after jumping on it, Law reprimands Zoro for his group's actions. They delivers the stolen food to Okabor town, and Luffy also provide the residents with clean water, much to their happiness. After Luffy part ways with Tama and Speed, Law takes the group to the ruins of Odin Castle. While traveling, they encounter a ferocious tiger, and Zoro separates from the group to fight it. The rest later arrive at the ruins of Odin Castle, and after seeing the graves of the Kazuki family, Luffy reunites with Kiemon, Momonosuke, Sanji, Nami, Brook, Chopper, and Carrot. Once they are inside, Kiemon reveals that he, Momonosuke, Kiku, Reizo, and Kenjuro came from the past, much to the others' surprise. He recounts stories such as how his lord, Kazuki Odin, was banished from the city for his violent inclinations and was free to go wherever he chose. He brought order after defeating a group of criminals and their boss Ashura Doji in a duel, thus becoming the daimyo of Kuri. But all that changed on the day of his demise, on that had taken place 20 years ago. Odin fought to his last breath, before he ultimately fell to his executioners, and Kiemon, Kenjuro, Reizo, Kiku, Inuarashi, and Nekomamushi fled from the site of their execution, and headed for Odin's castle in order to save his family, but his wife Toki used her devil fruit power to send the four into the future. Kiemon explained to Luffy's group the preparation they have done till now and assigned new tasks to them as he laid out the plan of how they are going to defeat Kaido, but much work remains, such as recruiting allies and gathering information on the enemy. While Usopp is looking for allies in Wano, Shutenmaru and the Atama thieves plunder Okabor town. Jack suddenly arrives and confronts Shutenmaru before they quickly get into a fight, but are interrupted when Kaido showed up in his dragon form. The drunken Kaido fly above the town and threaten Shutenmaru and all the people in the town, causing Luffy, Law, Kiemon, and Kiku to rush towards the town to rescue them. However, after Hawkins lied to Kaido, telling him that Law and Luffy are at the ruins of Odin's castle, Kaido headed towards the place and destroyed it with a single attack. Right after the destruction of Odin Castle, Luffy enters a furious battle with Kaido, but despite his best efforts, and after a brutal but short fight, the battle ends in Luffy's defeat. The Straw Hat Captain is then sent to a prison in the Udon region. Kiku returns to the mountain where Odin Castle was destroyed and discovers that the group there managed to escape the destruction. Frankie, Robin, Usopp, and Zoro read the news about Luffy's fight with Kaido, while Dogstorm and his group discover that Tama is alive and take her into the forest. At the prison in Udon, Luffy meets Kid again. Perona learns from a newspaper at Gecko Moria is alive and prepares to leave Kuraigana Island to search for him. While at the same time, Moria and his zombie army attack Pirate Island to find Absalom, only to learn that he had been killed. Dogstorm clashes with Shutenmaru, who refuses to aid in Kiemon's operation, while Sanji and the others seek out recruits. Nami and Shinobu finish with their current objective in the Flower Capital after spying on Oroshi's men in the attic and found out where he was stockpiling his weapons. Sanji's soba stand grows more popular but attracts some spies. In Udon, Luffy and Kid continue to work, but Dobon becomes angry at them for eating a lot of food, and the Vice Warden tries to attack them only to be defeated by the pair. Members of the Kayashiro family approach Sanji and demand that he pays to run his business. When he refuses, the thugs start to attack the shop and terrorize a little girl, knocking her bowl of soba onto the floor. Strangely, tears appear in the girl's eyes, but she laughs. They quickly begin to fight, and Sanji easily emerges victorious. Luffy becomes a celebrity among the prisoners for beating up Dobon and gives some food tickets to an old man that he saved earlier. Soon after, Reizo appears, having snuck into the prison, and reveals that he knows the location of the key to Luffy's seastone handcuffs. In Udon, Luffy continues to break rocks but is approached by Caribou, who is also imprisoned there, and begs him for food. Meanwhile, the henchmen who were defeated by Sanji report to their leader, Kayashiro, who decides to contact Queen to send assassins after him. At the castle, Orochi finally appears as a multi-headed serpent. Zoro goes to a gambling house with Tonoyasu, and after a brawl, he and Tonoyasu go to Ebisu town. Meanwhile, the Alliance works to steal weapons and food, and Frankie learns that Minatomo no longer has the blueprints of Kaido's mansion, and goes all over the Flower Capital searching for them, but hits a dead end. While at the Shogun's castle, CP0 attempts to negotiate with Orochi. The banquet at Orochi's palace start, and Robin begins her mission. Meanwhile, in Udon prison, Kid explains to Luffy and Caribou about how he lost his arm battling the Red Hair Pirates. Back at the Flower Capital, two of the Flying Six, Page 1 and X-Drake arrive to hunt down Sanji while in the seas surrounding Wano. The Big Mom pirates draw closer. King flies to the waterfall while the Big Mom pirates are coming up and knocks their ship down. Back at the capital, Page 1 attack multiple soba shops and owners looking for Sanji, who after hearing the cries, comes to fight him. As he confronts Page 1, Sanji puts on his raid suit and displays its capabilities, and back in the Shogun's castle, Robin sneaks around trying to find important information, but she is soon confronted by the Orochi on Iwabanshu. The ninjas attack Robin in order to find the truth of her intentions, but with the help of her devil fruit, she is able to get away. Meanwhile, Chopper, Kiku, Tama, and Momonosuke find Big Mom, who gets drifted to the shore after the encounter with King, and soon discover that she lost all her memories. Chopper gives the amnesiac Big Mom a fake name, while back inside the Shogun's castle, Orochi warns his guests about the return of the Akazaya Nine. Toko unintentionally laughs out loud, enraging him, and he lashes out at her, until Kamasaki steps in and slaps him, and when she refuses to apologize for her transgression, Orochi transforms in a fit of rage and goes on a rampage. Robin tries to flee with Toko, but she is found by him and he goes for Kamasaki as Robin protects Toko. Brook, Nami, and Shinobu arrive at the banquet hall to aid Robin. Right after Orochi releases his grip on Kamasaki during the commotion, Kayashiro faces the Oiran and seemingly cuts her down. Orochi then pursues Robin and Toko, intending to kill the little girl, but Nami manages to stop him with Zoo's help. Afterwards, the group at the castle escapes with Shinobu, and Chopper's group convinces Big Mom to travel with them to Udon. In the Ringo region, Kanjuro meets up with Shinobu's group at the northern cemetery. While in Ebisu town, Law's group learns from a newspaper that a funeral for Kamasaki will be held, and that Kid escaped from Udon prison, the place where Chopper's group and Big Mom are currently traveling to. In the prison, Hyogoro tries to make good use of the meal tickets that Luffy generously gave to him, but Daifugo approaches and torments the elderly man. Luffy kicks Daifugo to defend Hyogoro and then fights the guards until Babanuki fires a cannonball at him. Reizo manages to steal some keys from the prisoner mine's executive tower just as Queen arrive, and Luffy attempts to escape with Hyogoro. They fail and are quickly surrounded and fight some beasts pirates but are detained by Daifugo and Babanuki. Meanwhile, Usopp, Frankie, and Law are hiding at Yasui's house and wonder where Sanji is at. At the Bat House, Shinobu tell Nami and Robin about Hyogoro and how he was a highly respected person during Oden's reign. However, it is rumored that Hyogoro refused to serve Orochi and was killed. Reizo is surprised to see Kawamatsu in Udon prison while Queen forces Luffy and Hyogoro to fight in sumo matches with collars that will cut their heads off if they leave the ring. But as the sumo inferno begins, Luffy easily defeats his opponents. Meanwhile, at the Flower Capital bathhouse, Drake and Hawkins arrive to search for those associated with the Kazuki family. As Shinobu, Robin, and Nami are accosted by Hawkins, Sanji is revealed to be at the bathhouse as well, and after a scuffle with Drake and Hawkins, he escapes with the girls. In the Ringo region, Zoro confronts the person who stole his Shusui. The sumo inferno continues and Queen sends in the gifters after Luffy defeats the pleasures. At the Oihagi Bridge, Zoro clashes with Gyukimaru to get Shusui back, but their fight is interrupted when a woman and Toko arrive seeking help as they were chased by an assassin known as Kamazo, and Zoro then decides to fight the assassin to protect them. Due to a leak, those allied with the Kazuki family are getting arrested in the Flower Capital. During an argument with Shinobu, Law plans to rescue his crew, while at Oihagi Bridge, Zoro continues his clash with Kamazo, but because of Gyukimaru's interference, he lands a hit on the swordsman, who decide to show his techniques and turn the battle around to defeat Kamazo. Luffy continues trying to use an advanced haki technique as he and Hyogoro are confronted by Alpacaman and Medillaman. After the battle with Kamazo, Zoro's wound is treated by the woman he saved. During their conversation, the woman revealed herself to be Momonosuke's sister, Haori. She explains about some things about her past, such as how Kawamatsu watched over her after her parents' death while back in the Sumo Inferno. Hyogoro defeats Alpacaman, displaying his knowledge and skills with advanced Busashoku Haki, and offers to teach Luffy. He tries to learn Ryuo by fighting, and it continues through the night until they meet Caribou and Reizo and talks about the rebellion. Tonoyasu speaks to and addresses Kanjuro and Shinobu casually, but they do not remember him. Meanwhile, Big Mom approaches Udon with Kiku, Chopper, Momonosuke, and Tama. After his capture, Tonoyasu is sentenced to execution. Meanwhile, Hold'em and his men battle the Atama thieves, and while clashing with Ashura Doji, Hold'em sets the mountain on fire. In Ringo, Brook finds Zoro, Haori, and Toko and informs them of Yasui impending execution in the Flower Capital. Toko and Zoro's group make their way to the Flower Capital. As Shimatsuki Yasui is placed on a wooden pole and is being broadcast throughout Wano, his old acquaintances recognize him. The citizens of Ebisu town and some of the Straw Hats rush to the execution. As Orochi heads to the execution site, Yasui reveals that he lied about being Ushimitsu Kozo and plans to say a few things before meeting his demise. After claiming responsibility for Kiemon's secret message, saying it was a prank, and casting doubt in the Resetsu prison guards, Yasui meets a brutal end after Orochi and his men shoot him to death. As the Ebisu town citizens laugh over Yasui's death, Zoro turned furious that they would do so after all he's done for them, and Haori reveals to him that they were affected by the fruits known as Smile. As the citizens of Ebisu town grieve over Yasui's death, Shinobu reveals more information about the Smile fruits. Kaido wanted to increase the strength of his army, so he purchased artificial Zoan fruits from Doflamingo. However, only 10% of Smile fruit eaters successfully gain an ability. The other 90% would permanently lose their ability to swim as well as express any emotion other than joy. Orochi took some failed Smile fruits and gave them to the town, and given no other source of food. The people of Ebisu ate it and suffered its negative side effects. Toko enters the execution site, hoping to revive her father, and just as Orochi attempts to kill her as well, Zoro and Sanji step in and save her. The swordsman directly attacks Orochi, who is protected by Kayashiro, while Sanji fights against X-Drake. Frankie saves Zoro and manages to recover Yasui's body, and the rest of the Straw Hat Pirates joins the fight. At Udon, Luffy is assisting to his crew members' fights when two prisoners arrive, Kid and Kamazo, who turns out to be Killer. Zoro clashes with Kayashiro and Sanji clashes with X-Drake, while Usopp takes Toko to safety. The Orochi Oniwabanshu confront the Straw Hat Pirates, and Law arrives at the Resetsu town prison to rescue his crewmates, but he is faced with Hawkins. Back at Udon, Queen subjects Kid and Killer to water torture as he resumes the Sumo Inferno. However, Big Mom arrives at the prisoner mines. After the skirmish inside the Flower Capital, Kiemon confesses to Ashura Doji that he provoked Hold'em into attacking Atama, and when Ashura becomes angry, Kiemon admits his mistake for trying to force Ashura to join the rebellion and once again begs him for his help. After Chopper's group arrives at the prisoner mines, Big Mom breaks in, only to get into a fight with Queen. Big Mom subdues him when after he tries to fight her, as Kid and Killer are saved from drowning. Big Mom does not find any Ashiruko, and when Luffy blurts out that he ate it, she attacks him out of rage. Luffy and Hyogoro are forced out of the ring, but he manages to remove the collars before they are killed. Afterwards, Hyogoro decides to test Luffy by having him defend against Big Mom's attack, but she sends him and Hyogoro crashing into a wall. They both survive, but she continues chasing him around the prisoner mines. Queen regains consciousness and he comes up with a plan to take down Big Mom. Once Luffy and she return to where they started, Queen uses a dive bomb attack and strikes her in the head. However, the attack fails and Big Mom regains her memories. Soon after the hit, she suddenly faints and Queen quickly orders his men to restrain Big Mom and escorts her to Onigashima. With both of them gone, Luffy continues practicing with advanced haki. Babanuki then orders the prisoners to subdue Luffy, and they comply. Daifugo also fires toxic bullets on the prisoners, but before Luffy could be infected, a mysterious prisoner shouts out, Reizo retrieves the keys to Kawamatsu's cell as well as his sword, and as the ninja later gives them to him, Kawamatsu frees himself. After Reizo, Kawamatsu, and Kikunajo reunite, they joined up with Luffy and Hyogoro in fighting the Beast's pirates. However, the Beast's pirates continue infecting prisoners with Excite bullets. They try to stop Luffy from getting them involved but are still gunned with the Excite bullets that infects them with the mummy virus. The infected prisoners surround Luffy and allies, blaming them for this and doubts they'll defeat Kaido. Luffy grabs the infected prisoners, thus infecting himself, and tells them that he made a promise to make Wano a prosperous place again and doesn't need useless allies. After Luffy tells them to make a choice, the prisoners rise up and defeat the Beast's pirates in charge of Udon without any outside enemies finding out. After Udon is conquered, Chopper tends to Luffy and works to develop a cure for his condition. Luffy asks Kid to join the fight against Kaido, but he rejects and leaves Udon with Killer. After finding out that Luffy is a pirate, the prisoners distrust him, but Momonosuke speaks to them and convinces them to join the cause to liberate Wano. Elsewhere, Ashura Doji reveals to Kiyemon and Dogstorm that he had comrades who were too impatient to wait for the Kazuki family to return and died when they tried to fight Kaido. Some time later, Ashura comes around and decides to rejoin Kiyemon. Zoro and Hiyori have an encounter with Fujin and several ninjas that serve Orochi, and after defeating the ninjas, Zoro plans to get Shusui back. In the Flower Capital, Law allows himself to be taken prisoner in exchange for the release of his captured crewmates. Back in Udon, Chopper cures Luffy of the mummy virus and he regains his strength. As the Alliance continues with their preparations for the Fire Festival, Zoro returns to Oihagi Bridge along with Hiyori and he challenges Gyukumaru again to reclaim Shusui. The battle is then interrupted by Kawamatsu, while Big Mom is been taken to Onigashima, where she and Kaido begin clashing. Queen contacts Udon, and Babanuki, having been tamed by Tama, gives him a false report. Hyogoro gets reacquainted with the other Yakuza leaders, who join the rebellion, while Hiyori and Kawamatsu have a heartfelt reunion. A group of Beast's pirates arrives, seeking revenge on Gyukumaru, but Zoro and Kawamatsu defeat the attackers, and Gyukumaru flees the scene with the swordman chasing after him. Kawamatsu explains that he spent the decade robbing and storing swords from the eternal graves in Ringo after befriending Onimaru, a Komajitsun who was once the companion of Shimatsuki Ashimaru. He contacts Kiyemon to reveal that he can supply the Alliance with the stored weapons. Meanwhile, Gyukumaru reveals himself to be Onimaru in a human form and Hiyori offers to trade Zoro's Shusui with Emna, a sword that belonged to Kazuki Oden and the only blade that had ever injured Kaido. At the secret place where Kawamatsu stored weapons, Zoro agrees to return while at the Flower Capital, Law subdues Hawkins and escapes prison with the help from an unknown individual. As the day of the Fire Festival draws closer, the Alliance continues with their preparations for the raid on Onigashima. Apu returns to Wano with a group of gigantic beings known as the Numbers, while Kaido and Big Mom decide to put aside their feud and form an alliance to conquer the world. Hiyori part ways with Zoro and Kawamatsu, and the two later inform Momonosuke and the Akazaya 9 with him of her survival. As Zoro receives Enma and tests its destructive power and begin training with it, Luffy continues training his Busashoku Haki. Meanwhile, the Alliance adds more numbers to their cause and finish up with their preparations. On the day before the Fire Festival, Momonosuke and his group of retainers march to the rendezvous point to meet up with their allies. After the levee concluded, big news concerning Sabo spread throughout the world and those who knew him become distressed. Kobe and X-Drake have a private conversation via transponder Snail, and Drake informs him about the newly formed alliance between Kaido and Big Mom and the recent presence of CP0 in Wano. Thanks to the efforts of Nefertari Cobra and Riku Doldo, the 7 warlords of the sea have been abolished, and now that they are no longer affiliated with the world government, the Marines pursue the former members. At the new Marine headquarters, the officers hold a meeting and Sengoku explains about the Rocks Pirates, how they were a group of extremely violent people, including Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom and Shiki. However, 38 years ago in what would be known as the God Valley Incident, Garp joined forces with the Roger Pirates and defeated the Rocks. Brand New then reveals the bounty of each of the current emperors, and Sakazuki declares that the Marines will not go to Wano and mentions Oden, revealing Oden was a member of the Roger Pirates. Orochi heads to Onigashima after departing from Port Taboo on the day of the Fire Festival. Meanwhile, Kiemon and the other samurai wait for their allies at port, who have not arrived due to an incident orchestrated by Orochi the day prior. It is revealed that Orochi had the Beast's pirates bomb the Thousand Sunny and destroyed some bridges to cut off routes. At the port, the Akazaya 9 prepare to continue with the raid on their own. A flashback to many years ago begins, when Oden was a well-known troublemaker and a younger Kiemon takes a baby white boar from some thugs and brings it to the flower capital to gain money. However, the boar's parent arrives at the capital and start wreaking havoc. He continues its rampage in the capital until Oden confronts and defeats it, but after the incident, he was expelled from the capital due to him claiming it to be his fault. Due to their admiration for Oden, Kiemon and Denjiro decide to follow him, and after staying with Shimatsuki Yasui for a time, Oden decides to travel to Kuri. Along the way, he is also joined by Aizo, Kikunajo, Kenjuro, and Reizo, until he eventually arrives at Kuri and prepares to fight the bandits. Oden defeats Ashura Doji and earns the title of the daimyo of Kuri. He then spends years rebuilding the lawless land and eventually rescues and nurtures Nekomamushi, Dogstorm, and Kawamatsu. Yasui then gives gold to Oden's retainers to let them train and become worthy samurai, thus Oden and his retainers become distinguished legends in Wano, and Sukiyaki is proud of his accomplishments. Meanwhile, the Whitebeard pirates cast ashore the beaches of Wano. Kazuki Oden's dreams to leave Wano lead him directly to Whitebeard after he learns of the pirates' arrival, and after a brief battle, Oden begs Whitebeard to let him join his crew, but he denies his request due to concerns about his character. Once their ship is repaired, the Whitebeard pirates leave at night to avoid Oden's advances, but he catches up anyway, attaching a chain to the ship and riding with Aizo through the ocean. Marco saves Aizo and brings him onto the Moby Dick where he is tied up. Whitebeard tells Oden that if he holds on for 3 days, he can join the crew, and after most of that time pass, Oden only has an hour left before he can join the crew, but after hearing the screams of Amatsuki Toki, Oden lets go of the chain to save her life. Toki tends to Oden after he rescued her from the kidnappers, but on the next day, they are confronted by the kidnappers and their leader, Karma, until Whitebeard intervenes and knocks him out before he accepts Oden into his crew because of his selflessness. Toki, Aizo, and the stowaways Dogstorm and Nekomamushi become part of Whitebeard's crew as well. Oden travels to various places and has many eventful experiences, and he and Toki have a son together with the name Kazuki Momonosuke. Orochi plots to take the shogunate with Higarashi's assistance, having been twisted by the Kurozumi family's unfair persecution since his childhood, and as Oden continues his journey with Whitebeard he finally encounters the Roger pirates. A clash between Whitebeard and Gold Roger ensues. After a battle between the pirates, and some push from the Roger pirates' captain, Oden agrees to accompany Roger on his final voyage to the last island due to his ability to read the poneglyphs, and is joined by his family as well as Nekomamushi and Dogstorm. The Roger pirates travel the Grand Line as they visit Skypiea, Water 7, Tequila Wolf, Sabaody, and Fishman Island, where they are able to take a copy of a road poneglyph, while a young Madame Charlie predicts that the ancient weapon Poseidon will be born in 10 years. Toki becomes ill, and Oden is forced to drop off his family with Nekomamushi and Dogstorm at Wano while quickly taking a copy of the road poneglyph. The Roger pirates travel to Zou to get a copy of the final road poneglyph needed in order to arrive at the final island. But before departing, Buggy becomes extremely ill and stays behind with Shanks taking care of him. When faced with the treasure on the last island, the Roger pirates simply laugh while Roger expresses interest in the humorous tale of Joy Boy. Roger then becomes the king of the pirates as he dubs the final island Laugh Tale. After attaining everything, Roger disbands his crew, and after discussing about who would surpass them, the pirates threw one last party together and Roger was the first one to leave. Later, Oden returned to Wano with intentions to open its borders before Joy Boy's return and reunited with his family. However, he was surprised at changes that happened while he was gone, including his father dying and Orochi becoming a shogun. after learning about the atrocities Orochi has done from his retainers. Oden prepares to confront him and charges to the flower capital, cutting down anyone who tries to stop him and tries to attack Orochi but is blocked by Semimaru's barrier and learns that he had Higurashi take Sukiyaki's appearance to make himself the next shogun. Orochi and Kaido offered Oden a deal: if Oden made a fool of himself by dancing naked in front of the palace once a week, then the people of Wano would be spared and they would leave in 5 years' time, and Oden agreed. He would dance in his underwear in front of the castle once a week and his retainers question him for answers. But he doesn't tell them. A year later, Oden receives a newspaper from the outside world from Momonosuke and learns of Roger's execution as well as Whitebeard, who thinks back to his final meeting with him as he tells him about the will of D. Meanwhile, Oden ran to the seacoast crying and laughing, amazed by the life his former life lived due Roger starting the golden age of piracy. The beasts and gecko pirates clash against each other as someone vandalizes Ryuma's grave and Oden continues to dance, with the only people left that still support him are his family, retainers, Yasui, and Hyogoro. 5 years later, Orochi goes back on his promise with Oden and reveal how he had Kaido deal with Hyogoro. This spurs Oden take action as he and his retainers, now given the name Akazaya 9, set out to defeat Kaido while Yasui goes to Kuri to protect Oden's family at his request. Arriving in the Udon region, Oden and the Akazaya 9 are confronted by the beast's pirates and Kaido tell him a spy must be among them. Oden questions Kaido about their promise and he reveals it was a lie in order to increase their chance of victory. Oden and the Akazaya 9 charge at Kaido's subordinates and begin cutting them down. Shinobu helps Oden and the Akazaya 9 in their battle as King and Queen join the fray to confront Oden's retainers. He fights Kaido and is pushed back until he manages to injure him, leaving a scar. Kaido turns back into his human form and defeats Oden after Higurashi tricks him by transforming into Momonosuke and pretend to be held hostage. Azura and Kiemon try to rescue Oden but were defeated as well by King and Queen. 3 days later, Oden and the Akazaya 9 were sentenced to public execution by boiling in hot oil. Before getting in the pot, Oden demands Orochi and Kaido to give him and his retainers a chance to live, and he proposes a challenge, that if one of them survives in the hot oil for 1 hour, the rest should be set free. Kaido agrees to the challenge, and Oden rushes into the boiling vessel of oil. He holds a plank up for the Akazaya 9 to sit on as the crowd watching the execution criticize him. Shinobu reveals that Oden danced naked in the streets in order to save 100 people from being kidnapped with each dance, and the kidnapped civilians were used as laborers to manufacture weapons, leaving the crowd shocked. He manages to survive for over an hour, which enrages Orochi, who orders his men to shoot and kill Oden, breaking the promise, but he managed to throw his scabbards off of the execution platform before being shot and killed by Kaido. The Akazaya 9 rush towards the Kuri castle to protect Momonosuke and Lady Toki. After Kaido threatens Momonosuke and leaves the castle to burn, Toki sends Kiemon, Kanjuro, Kikunajo, Reizo, and Momonosuke 20 years into the future while Kawamatsu escapes the burning castle with Haori. Shortly after, Toki is shot and killed after delivering inspiring words to onlookers, and Denjiro is enraged with Oden and Toki's deaths to the point where his face becomes unrecognizable. He takes on the alias Kayashiro and starts the Kayashiro family to get close with Orochi in the capital. It is also revealed that Denjiro is Ushimitsu Kozo, who steals money from the capital and distributes it to the poor. After running away from Kawamatsu, Haori meets Denjiro and agrees to take on the alias Kamurasaki for the next 20 years. A few months before the present day, Orochi receives a letter from a Kurozumi spy that informs him about the return of the Akazaya 9 sent through time. With no allies have to come to aid the raid on Onigashima, the Akazaya 9 jump on a rowboat to get there by themselves. Kikunajo tells them that there must be a traitor amongst them, and Kanjuro reveals himself to be the one. 3 Beasts Pirates galleon come to attack, and Kanjuro is decapitated by Kiemon only to reveal that it was a drawing and that he had captured Momonosuke. When suddenly Luffy, Law and Kid arrive. A naval battle between the Beasts Pirates and the Alliance ensues as it is revealed that the Thousand Sunny withstood the bombing attacks the day prior, which surprises the gifters. Luffy, Law, and Kid destroy one of the opposing ships together in an attempt to assert dominance over one another. Meanwhile, Eiichiro arrives and destroys one of the beast pirate ships, much to everyone's surprise. He reveals his real identity as Denjiro, one of Kazuki Oden's retainers, and corrects that Kiemon's mistaken Habu port for Tokage port. He also says that every samurai has safely arrived at their destination, totaling 5,400 allies for the war. Meanwhile, Kanjuro prepares to escape with Momonosuke after Orochi's plan fails. After Momonosuke gave a heart-touching speech, the beast pirate starts attacking the samurais from a distance and sink it one by one. Suddenly, the ship is destroyed, and to the Straw Hat's excitement, the one who attacked it is revealed to be Jinbe, who finally arrived in Wano. He joined the Straw Hat pirates as the Akazaya 9 and Law make their plan, while the Straw Hats attack the guards at the Torii Gate. As they enter and defeat the guards, Queen begins the Golden Kagura festivities, and the Tobi Rappo meet to hear their captain's request. The Straw Hats set up to toast Jinbe officially joining, but after the Akazaya 9 and their other allies advance on Onigashima, they decide to wait to celebrate with everyone after they defeat Kaido, Orochi, and Big Mom. As the Alliance and Kid Pirates reach Onigashima, Kiemon uses his power to blend everyone's clothes with the Beast's pirates and gives a speech to the samurai to take advantage of their disguises and reach the castle for the final battle. Luffy, Zoro, and the Kid Pirates get through the main entrance, whilst the rest of the Straw Hats joined with Shinobu and Carrot begin to take the mountain path. At the live floor, Luffy and Zoro are enraged by the obnoxious behavior of the Beast Pirates and their wasteful attitude towards food and drinks. Luffy attacks nearby Beast Pirates while Zoro cuts through a tower to get to Luffy on the live floor, which causes a commotion. Together, they are enraged by the Beast Pirates wasting red bean soup when they reflect on the struggles of Odama. They attempt to escape and reach Kaido's castle when they are stopped by Scratch Menapool, and after being overpowered by his music ability, Kid arrives to punch a Pool for betraying their former alliance. One of the numbers, Hacha, comes to interfere, but Kid's crew handles him while Luffy, Zoro, Kid, and Killer escape the area and find out how to block Apu's attacks. Big Mom's crew make their way up the falls and Kiemon's group advance near the pleasure hall, although Sanji gets distracted and attempts to find the women in there but fails, and who wants to get rid of someone from the Tobi Rappo. Big Mom appears, spotting Chopper in her sight, and her crew make it up the falls to be awaited by Marco the Phoenix, who sends them back down. As Nekomamushi and Aizo see Marco, Kanjuro brings Momonosuke to Orochi, and Luffy and Zoro fight Kaido's underlings. Chopper and Usopp attempt to escape Big Mom, but instead battle her inside the Brachio tank, helping Kiemon's group move on. Meanwhile, Marco, Aizo, and Nekomamushi head to Onigashima while Denjiro fools Sasaki and chains him to a tree. Prometheus catches Nami's group and chases them, while Ulti and Page 1 crash down the stairs and make contact with Luffy. Kanjuro brings Momonosuke to Orochi and Kaido and informs them of the alliance advancing to Onigashima. Orochi decides to hold Momonosuke's execution in order to break the alliance's spirits, and Usopp and Chopper continue to disturb Big Mom as Kiemon's group continue on. Luffy fights Ulti and Page 1 until Yamato appears and knocks her out with one hit. She then picks up Luffy and runs away while revealing that she is Kaido's son. Perospero arrives at Onigashima to stop the Emperor's alliance and revenge against Luffy, King, and Marco. Big Mom corners Usopp and Chopper until Prometheus calls her because he found Nami's group, and Orochi begins Momonosuke's execution as the sum of the alliance watch on. Luffy questions Yamato's motive, and when he attacks her with Red Hawk, it reminds her of the battle against Ace, who came to Wano for Kaido's head. Orochi continues with speech about defeating the Kazuki and how their final heir and retainers were sent 20 years into future for revenge. Robin, Jinbe, and the samurai in disguise are forced to wait for a chance to rescue Momonosuke as Orochi thinks of a way to execute him. The Heart Pirates and remaining Akazaya 9 arrive at Onigashima just as Nekomamushi, Marco, and Aizo arrive as well. Kaido show up at the performance floor to announce the new Onigashima project. Meanwhile, Yamato manages to convince Luffy to listen to her and reveal she witnessed Oden's execution, read his journal, and took on his name to continue his dream of opening Wano. Yamato then removed her mask, revealing her nature and how Luffy reminds her of Ace, shocking him. She tells Luffy how Ace mentioned him a lot and that she wanted to join him on his adventures but couldn't due to the exploding handcuffs put on her by Kaido. Law separates from the Akazaya 9 and Izo as they are confronted by Kenjuro and the Beast's pirates. Prometheus continues to chase Nami, Carrot, Shinobu, and Zeus using the new homies to capture them as Big Mom grabs Zeus. Kaido reveals his intentions to collect the ancient weapons and allied with Big Mom, who arrives at the performance floor, due to the world government's intent to go to war with the 4 emperors after abolishing the 7 warlords of the sea. The Alliance are shocked by Big Mom's appearance and her capture of Nami's group. She and Kaido mention the purpose to acquire the One Piece and ancient weapons to bring fear and war. When Kaido mentions building more factories in the capital, Orochi refuses due to the vengeance he wants for the Kurozumi clan, and Kaido cuts his head off his body, shocking everyone, as Luffy decides to go rescue Momonosuke. Meanwhile, Kiku and Kenjuro continue their battle with him using their past against her, saying it was all an act. Accepting that the Kenjuro she knew will never return, Kiku attacks and defeats him, and the Akazaya 9 with Izo continue on with their mission. Meanwhile, Kaido gives Orochi subordinates an ultimatum: either join him or die, and mentions turning Wano into a pirate empire for the war, relocating Onigashima to the capital, and make Yamato the new shogun of New Onigashima. Angered by this news, Yamato makes a shortcut for her and Luffy to use to reach Kaido. Orochi's subordinates decide to join Kaido, who asks Momonosuke the same question he asked 20 years ago and demands to know Momonosuke's name, offering to cancel the execution if he turns out not to be the son of Odin. Just as Momonosuke answers, revealing he is a member of the Kazuki family, Kaido prepares to execute him, and Luffy removes Yamato's handcuffs, which explodes, sending to them flying into performance floor and blowing away Big Mom and some pirates. Angry that Kaido was really gonna kill her, Yamato denounces him as her father and prepares to attack him. However, she is stopped by Luffy due to the Akazaya 9 and Izo arriving. They then bypass the lead performers and knock Kaido off the stage, injuring him. Due to their Ryu, the Akazaya 9's weapons pierce Kaido in several places, and he falls off the stage as the allies' samurai remove their disguise. Ulti confronts Yamato, who makes official her departure from the Beast's pirates, saying she doesn't care if Kaido dies. Trafalgar Law follows through Kaido's castle, and Who's Who stops chasing Yamato to resolve other business. Shinobu tries to approach Momonosuke without being noticed, while Nami and Carrot escape from the homies with a combined electric attack, and Nami retrieves Zeus. When the Alliance, Kid Pirates, Marco, and Perispero begin to overrun Kaido's castle, Queen calls off the banquet and tells the Beast's pirates to counter the raid. Kaido transforms into his dragon form and fly outside to the roof with the Akazaya 9 riding on him. The Minks and Jack, Nangi, and soldiers join their battle with them, transforming into their Sulong, and clash with Jack in his mammoth form and defeat Nangi and the soldiers. Nekomamushi and Dogstorm would then begin to transform into their Sulong forms as well. Shinobu tries to rescue Momonosuke but gets caught by King, who prepares to kill him until Sanji come to the rescue. King then sends Sanji through a building, and Luffy tells Yamato to protect Momonosuke while he deals with Big Mom. The latter launches a powerful attack that he dodges and almost kills Sasaki, but ends up freeing him from the tree he was chained to. She then goes after Nami, who still has Zeus, and retrieved him to prepare an attack to strike her down, but Frankie and Brook arrive with Brook slicing Zeus in half, and Frankie run over Big Mom's face, sending her to the floor. Usopp and Chopper try to escape from Jackie, Goki, and Juki, but to no avail. Yamato knocks Ulti away and reaches Momonosuke and Shinobu, who learn from Luffy that she is an ally. However, when she calls herself Odin, they run away, and Big Mom wakes up in anger as Frankie prepares to fire a radical beam at her, but is surprised when the numbers, who are revealed to be failed recreations of the ancient giants, arrive. Noticing Jackie carrying the Braccio tank, Frankie fires the radical beam at him. Taking advantage of the situation, Big Mom attempts to attack Frankie but is stopped by Jimby and Robin, who sends her rolling out of the castle. Frankie tells Usopp and Chopper that it's time to combine, while Luffy looks up at the hole to the roof, telling Kiemon to wait for him. Marco and Perospero spot Big Mom rolling out of the Sky Dome and Jack overpowers the minks until Nekomamushi and Dogstorm transform into their Sulong forms and attack him. Luffy and Zoro attempt to get to the roof but are stopped by Queen while Franky defeats Jackie. The Straw Hats gather together after defeating some of the soldiers and Luffy asks everyone to back them up as he makes another attempt to get up to the roof. Drake watches the Alliance take on the Beast's pirates and thinks back to Kobe telling him how Luffy draws people in. He tells Hawkins it's the best time to turncoat, but Hawkins refuses and predicts someone only has 1% chance of surviving until tomorrow. King contacts the Toby Rappo and tells them to prevent the intruders from reaching the roof. Who's Who asks Drake to help him kill Queen, and the samurai clash with the Mimowarigumi and the Orochi Anuwabanshu, while Zoro and Jinbe save them from Goki's attack. Meanwhile, Drake and Who's Who confront Queen, only for Drake to be attacked by them with Hawkins revealing his prediction was for Drake. They question Drake's objectives due to him letting Law get away, but he escapes from them and defeats Juki as Luffy defeats Goki. Noticing each other, Drake asks Luffy to fight alongside him. Luffy lets him join despite his crew's protest and runs to the castle with Sanji. Page 1 and Ulti defeat a horde of samurai and try to attack Luffy before being stopped by Usopp and Nami. Apu attacks but it's ineffective due to them covering their ears. Hacha arrives to help and goes after the General Franky while carrying Jackie. And Zoro continues to clash with Drake and questions his true identity until Apu tries to summon more numbers. They attack him together, but Apu dodges and Zoro accepts Drake's alliance due to their mutual dislike of their enemy. They attack together until Queen shoots at them and the samurai, who are affected by the bullets which causes ice to appear on their bodies. They continue to freeze over turning into ogres, attacking their own comrades who turn into one as well, while Queen fires more bullets at everyone in his sight. The minks continue to battle Jack and his squad until Nekomamushi and Dogstorm are the only ones left standing, forcing Kaido to step in. Big Mom battles Marco as Carrot reaches them and looks at the moon while Luffy and Sanji continue on to the roof where the Akazaya 9 battle Kaido. They are overwhelmed by his strength and Kiyemon remembers a time when Oden offered to teach them his two-sword style, but they declined. The Akazaya 9 rally together and their attacks begin to injure Kaido, who wonders why and is surprised to see an image of Oden when Kiyemon, Denjiro, Ashura, and Dogstorm cut him in his scar using their master's sword style. As more samurais continue to turn into ogres by Queen's new plague, Ice Oni, Sanji and Jinbe defeat more of the pirates so that Luffy could save his strength for Kaido. In the capital, the citizens continue to celebrate the fire festival while still clinging the belief that the Kazuki clan will save them. On the Skull Dome's rooftop, Kaido has fallen in the Akazaya 9 attempt to finish him off, but he gets back up, telling them their attacks were too shallow to reopen his wound. He then unleashes a roar of wind scythes, one of which cuts off Kikunajo's left arm. Yamato is still chasing after Momonosuke and Shinobu, who are being watched by Bao Huang, and reports their location to King. He then informs the rest of the crew to bring Momo's head in order to break the samurai's will. Sasaki encounters Shinobu and Momonosuke and has his armored core fire at them until Yamato protects them. Dogstorm orders his men to get away from the roof as Kiyemon cauterized Kikunajo's severed arm and Kaido changes back into his human form and continues the fight against the Akazaya 9. As Queen spreads Ice Oni, he gives Apu the only known antidote and starts a game for it where everyone chase after Apu to claim the antidote or they die within an hour. Yamato reveals to Momonosuke and Shinobu that she was at Oden's execution and was inspired by Shinobu's speech as well as Oden's life. The armored core fires at them again with Yamato taking the hit while also revealing that she rushed to Kuri Castle to save Momonosuke but couldn't do anything to help him as she knocks out one of Sasaki's men. Marco clashes with Big Mom but is caught by her while Perospero prepares to shoot him. Apu battles Zoro and Drake to protect the antidote as Chopper becomes infected with the Ice Oni. Nami and Usopp are forced to fight but get overwhelmed by the siblings who demand to hear that Luffy will never become king of the pirates. Despite this, Nami states that he will be one someday, angering Ulti, who prepares to headbutt her before being attacked by Kamakio with Tama riding on his back. Carrot and Wanda transform into their Sulong forms and attack Perospero. Big Mom tosses Marco to go back inside the castle, but he follows suit and is surprised by the Ice Oni. Page 1 rescues Ulti from Kamakyo and attacks Usopp, who lands on Kamakyo's back during its escape. Tama reveals she arrived on the island by the enemy's ship and tells Hihimaru to hold off Page 1 and Ulti for 3 minutes. Yamato continues to blow away Sasaki's armored division, and when he prepares to join the battle, she begins to transform until Frankie arrives with Hatcha, who destroys the floor. As she runs with Momonosuke and Shinobu, Yamato tells him to live because she believes he is the one who will lead the world to the new dawn. Law finds a poneglyph while thinking back to when Corazon told him about the D and telling Robin his true name. Zoro and Drake battle a pull for the cure, and Big Mom arrives to the performance floor to reunite with Kaido, who easily overwhelms the Akazaya 9. And Kid gathers a ton of metal to use against him. Zoro notices Kiku's severed arm falling from the floor and begins cutting the Ice Onis down in rage before defeating a pull. He then gives the cure to Chopper, who uses fire to slow the symptoms down. Luffy, Sanji, and Jinbe are about to reach the 3rd floor when Sanji hears a woman in trouble. Sanji goes to rescue only to end up in a trap set by Black Maria. Kinemon tries to battle Kaido, but he is sent flying, and Marco arrives at the performance stage to help the Straw Hats. While Yamato attempts to escape the island with Momonosuke and Shinobu, they learn that Kaido has raised Onigashima into the air with his power. Marco uses his Phoenix Flames to slow down the Ice Oni spread on its victims, making them regain their senses temporarily. Chopper begins to make the cure, while X-Drake and the Alliance protect him from Apu and the Beast's pirates. Jinbe stays behind to fight Who's Who while Luffy goes ahead. Frankie battles Sasaki, who transforms, and Page 1 and Ulti defeat Hihimaru, then begin to search for Nami and Usopp. Yamato takes Momonosuke and Shinobu to a storage room to hide, and when Momonosuke asks about the broken dragon statue, Yamato reveals that her friend who came to Wano to kill Kaido several years ago did it. She tells him how Ace came to Onigashima to rescue the abducted children and take Kaido's head. However, he was confronted by Yamato, who revealed that the Beast's pirates went on an expedition and that she is Kaido's daughter. As the Spade pirates take the children back to their parents, Ace stays behind to battle Yamato and learns the reason why she can't leave the island. However, he convinces her otherwise, which causes Yamato to destroy the dragon statue at the gate, and Ace punches the statue to take responsibility. They then share a bottle of sake, and Ace shares with her different stories and tells Yamato about how his brother will be the greatest pirate to come. Momonosuke is surprised that another pirate appeared to help Wano and that Kaido is Yamato's father. He also learns from Yamato that Ace is dead, but that she was waiting for Luffy, who has inherited his will. Elsewhere, Tama reveals her history with Ace to Nami and how ungently Luffy told her he had died, as Nami apologizes and reveals to Tama how Ace's death was painful for Luffy as well. Marco turns into a phoenix and takes Zoro to the roof while thinking back to when Ace wanted to go save Wano but couldn't. Meanwhile, Tama learns that Luffy and Ace are brothers and regrets for what she said to Luffy earlier, but is reassured by Nami and Usopp. Marco holds King and Queen back while he throws Zoro up to the roof. The Musketeers defend the entrance to the roof until Luffy arrives, and Big Mom tells Kaido not to kill Robin as they need her, and they argue when she asks about the road poneglyph. She reminds Kaido of his life debt of her giving him the mythical fish fruit the same day rocks fell. However, Kaido brushes her off and says that they can talk about it all they want once they find the One Piece. Yamato shows Momonosuke his father's journal and tells him how she found it, revealing that Whitebeard, Roger, and Odin predicted that the next generation of pirates would advance to the New World. She gave Ace his Vivre card and that they'll meet again through it. However, Ace died at Marineford and Yamato decided to wait for Luffy. In the present, Yamato explains how Odin predicted the next group of pirates would defeat Kaido in his stead. Luffy, Zoro, Law, Kid, and Killer reach the roof and confront Kaido and Big Mom. Luffy bravely walks past them to check on the Akazaya 9, and Kinemon asks him to save Wano before Law teleports them away. Kaido attacks, but he dodges and knocks him down with Red Rock, shocking Big Mom, before he then introduces himself as the one who will surpass the two of them and become the king of the pirates. Kaido attacks Luffy, who barely dodges and is pleased, especially after seeing the shadows of those who were capable of fighting him behind Luffy. Big Mom attempts to attack him with Prometheus, but Zoro cuts it in half using Foxfire style while Kaido attempts to attack a distracted Luffy. However, Law rescues him and they argue with each other with Kid joining in. Big Mom fires heavenly bonbons at the three captains who refuse to dodge due to Luffy's game. Zoro and Killer attack Kaido as he, Law, and Kid get back up and prepare to attack. Meanwhile, Sanji attempts to escape Black Maria's pleasure hall but is unable to attack them and refuses to tell her about Robin. Luffy, Kid, and Law attack Kaido with their respective techniques. He turns back into his dragon form and Big Mom joins him, revealing they intend to take everything from the worst generation and be one step closer to becoming king of the pirates. Kaido attacks with Demolition Gust but everyone dodges it with the trio counterattacking and injuring him. Killer attempts to attack but is stopped by Big Mom, allowing Luffy to use this opening to kick Kaido in the face. However, he prepares to fire at Luffy until Zoro cuts his attack and only grazes Kaido's cheek when Big Mom warned him to dodge. While Kaido wonders why he senses Odin's presence in the sword, Big Mom strikes everyone with lightning but is surprised when it doesn't affect Luffy. Kaido fires another breath at him but is also surprised when he gets hit by Calm Gatling. Luffy knocks him into the roof with everybody in the Skull Dome noticing the vibrations. He then attempts to land one more hit, but his fourth gear wears off and Big Mom tries to attack him, until Zoro come through. Law hits Big Mom with counter shock while Kid and Killer charge at Kaido, who gets back up and uses Tatsumaki to blow everyone away and eats Luffy. Zoro uses his own Tatsumaki to free him and cut through Kaido's scales, who finally deduces that Zoro is using Odin's sword, as the pain and strange haki felt similar. He decides to challenge Zoro using Tatsumaki Demolition Gust, which everyone tries to dodge. He then changes into his hybrid form, which surprises the worst generation. Meanwhile, CP0 is revealed to be at the banquet and go over the battlefield, hoping the pirates wipe each other out after losing their business partner Orochi. A few hours before the raid, Tama told Speed to take her to Onigashima because she plans on bringing the gifters under her control in order to help the alliance and makes a big bag of dumplings on the way. In the present, Speed, Gazelle Man, and Daifugo pass out millet dumplings to the gifters to bring them under Tama's control by telling them it's one of Queen's inventions. At the performance floor, while protecting Chopper, Hyogoro gets infected by a samurai when Marco's flame wears off. Frankie continues to battle Sasaki but is at a disadvantage until Nami, Usopp, and Tama arrive and take over the armored core with the dumplings. This opening allows Frankie to cut a confused Sasaki with his sword. Perispero fights against Carrot and Wanda as the location of the scabbards is found, and the battle in Skull Dome continues as Chopper tries to create an antidote for the Ice Onis, while Sanji screams for Robin to come save him. Brook and Robin show up to free him. While Yamato, Shinobu, and Momonosuke are spotted by a Mary in the storehouse and escape after battling many of Kaido's officers, and the upper team continue their fight against Kaido and Big Mom on the Skull Dome's roof. Chopper creates and tries the antidote he made, while Marco hold back both King and Queen all by himself, and Hyogoro completely transform into an Ice Oni and asks Yatap to kill him. Meanwhile, Luffy finishes regenerating his haki and wakes up to help them. Chopper's antidote is a success, and he spreads it across the live floor, curing everyone. Angered by this, Queen attempts to attack Chopper, but the Pleasures protect him after Queen insults them and the waiters for being useless. Marco takes this opportunity to grab Queen by the neck, allowing Chopper to attack him. In the treasure repository, the Akazaya 9 recover but are confused as to who tended to them and are surprised when Kazuki Odin appears before them. In the right brain tower, Yamato and Shinobu continue to defeat the Beast's pirates when Momonosuke feels disgusted with himself for being weak and transforms into a dragon, which surprises the two. In CP0's room, the leader thinks back to when Dr. Vegapunk created a failed artificial devil fruit from Kaido's lineage factor and hopes it was destroyed with Punk Hazard after it was left there. Meanwhile, the Akazaya 9 are happy to see Odin except for Ashura and Reizo, who see through his lies as he is revealed to be a drawing made by Kenjuro. Elsewhere, Momonosuke returns to normal and reveals that Luffy is worn out but still in high spirit. On the Skull Dome's roof, the worst generation are being pushed back by Kaido and Big Mom and decide to split them up in order to beat them. Orochi is also revealed to be still alive thanks to his devil fruit powers, and sets the whole place on fire to destroy everyone. The Akazaya 9 fight off the fake Odin, with Ashura dying in the process. Inuarashi stays behind to fight Jack while the rest of them begin searching for Momonosuke. On the rooftop, the Emperors launch a joint attack, nearly taking out the worst generation. But Zoro is barely able to block it, allowing Luffy to fire back and note that Kaido has resorted to dodging attacks. As the Akazaya 9 defeat Orochi, the worst generation continue battling the Emperors, successfully throwing Big Mom off the roof. She recovers from her fall, reapproaching Onigashima, while Kaido and the worst generation continue to fight. Zoro manages to scar Kaido, but both him and Law are defeated, and Luffy resolves to push back. They all scatter across Onigashima, preparing for new fights. Kid gets ready to battle Big Mom, Killer fights Hawkins, and Luffy against Kaido. Meanwhile, Nami, Tama, and Usopp return to the live floor, chased by Page 1. Luffy and Kaido resume their fight as Momonosuke, Shinobu, and Yamato wait for Kiemon's help. Page 1 chases down Nami, Usopp, and Tama, but is defeated by an enraged Big Mom as retaliation for Okobor Town's destruction. The 9 red scabbards split up to help across Onigashima with Nekomamushi heading to Perospero. Chopper continues fighting Queen. Sanji and Zoro head to the live floor, while Nami faces off against Ultai. Big Mom defeats the Tobarapo member, allowing Nami and Usopp to escape. Luffy and Kaido continue their fight, until Luffy gets hit and falls off Onigashima unconscious. As Luffy falls into the sea, various fights progress with Zeus eaten by Hera, and Chopper continues to stall Queen. Momonosuke reads Odin's logbook, but is found by Ameri. Kid finally finds Big Mom preparing to fight her and Chopper continues to battle Queen while Bao Huang declares Luffy's loss. Kanjiro defeats Kikunajo before being beaten himself by Kiemon. Kaido arrives in front of Momonosuke, crushing Kiemon in the process. Like all the other samurai, Chopper is discouraged by the news of Luffy's loss and Queen doesn't miss the chance to finish him off. Meanwhile, Kiemon fights for his life to save Momonosuke and that motivates the latter to rise up. As Luffy sinks into the sea, Momonosuke uses Ameri to inform everybody located on Onigashima of his survival, and to declare that Luffy will defeat Kaido. Elsewhere, Kid prepares to battle Big Mom, when Law suddenly arrives. Back with Nami, Usopp, and Tama, the group is trying to identify why Nami's Climattact can speak and realize that it's actually Zeus. He reveals that when Nami tried to feed him black balls, he was pressed into her Climattact and can't leave without Big Mom's power, before they are attacked by Ulti. Meanwhile, the Heart Pirates hear a voice underwater, finding Luffy sinking and Yamato reaches the roof, seeking to fight Kaido. Nami uses Zeus to strike down Ulti, and her defeat is accidentally announced across Onigashima by Bao Huang. Tama gives a command to the gifters she tamed, turning all the gifters against the beast's pirates. The Heart Pirates find a sinking Luffy, positioning their submarine underneath him and pushing him to the surface. They begin trying to treat him, forcing the water he's swallowed out of his stomach. Hearing Tama's command, the gifters side with the samurai and upset the Tobarapo and others. As Queen tries to shoot them, he is attacked by Sanji, and reveals that he is a former member of the science group MADS. Chopper starts to take care of Zoro while suffering from the side effect of the enhanced Rumble Ball. Meanwhile, Jinbe gets stunned by Who's Who's story as he explained his past as a government agent, and that 13 years ago, he was tasked with protecting a devil fruit, which was stolen, and later eaten by Monkey D. Luffy. Who's Who fiercely battles Jinbe in his saber tiger form, and brings up the past slavery of Sun Pirates members and fishmen as a whole, asking Jinbe for more information about Nika which he knows nothing about. But after making rude remarks regarding the fishmen, Jinbe angrily defeats Who's Who with a brutal attack. To cut ties with Kaido, Yamato unleashes her true power. Meanwhile, Queen repeatedly attacks Sanji with his power as a cyborg, and Sasaki in his human beast form launches tricky attacks on Franky and drives him into a corner, but the latter managed to grab him before suplexing him into the ground. In the ocean, the Heart Pirates manage to wake up Luffy as he finally regains consciousness, and begins demanding meat. Yamato and Kaido continue to duel on the rooftop, and Franky finished Sasaki using a radical beam to the stomach. Inside Onigashima, as the two walk through fog, Nico Alvia suddenly appear before Robin. Saul and Clover quickly follow suit, as she reminisces her time with the three of them but realizes soon enough that those are simply illusions, knocking away Nurana, Kunyan, and Tenjo, who were embodying the illusions. In the dense mist, Brook is surprised to see his old friends. The Rumbar pirates but also manage to see through Maria's deceive and get himself out the illusions, and leaves Robin and Black Maria as they begin fighting in earnest, with Robin making a giant version of herself to fight but Maria begins slicing at the arms, causing injuries to form on Robin herself. Meanwhile, Caribou arrives behind a shipwreck, offering meat to Luffy. The latter asks Momonosuke to transform into a dragon and bring him back up to Onigashima, much to his surprise. Black Maria shoots her webs at Robin, grabbing and stopping her movement, then jumps to punch her over and over. Robin remembers a training session with the Revolutionary Army, during which she learned a new slapping technique that applies fishman karate. She creates another giant arm, slapping the ceiling above her, putting out the fire in the process. Free from the webs, Robin creates a form of herself in the shape of a demon, trapping Black Maria in a grappling hold before knocking her unconscious with clutch. While Brook takes care of the rest. Back on the mainland, Momonosuke tries to convince Shinobu to transform him into an adult using her devil fruit, causing her to panic. Reizo enters battle against Fukuro Kuju, but the latter uses his long earlobes as whips, knocking him to the ground. Killer battles Hawkins and manages to slash him, but Hawkins' devil fruit ability allows him to redirect the damage onto other people, leaving himself unharmed. When Killer stabs Hawkins again, he instead injures Kid, hurting his battle with Big Mom as he falls to the ground and Law steps in. On the live floor, Sanji is left to battle against both King and Queen but is soon overwhelmed and strike down. While Zoro continues to heal, waiting for the drug to take effect, Perospero attempts to sabotage Sanji but Nekomamushi appears and strikes him out of the castle. Thank you for watching, and if you have made it this far, I hope you enjoyed it and are now fully caught up to the One Piece story. It took me months to make this recap, so if you wish to support me then consider dropping a like as well as subscribing if you want to see more anime recaps as I post almost every week. Also, don't forget to check out the links in the description, and with that out the way, I will see you guys in the next video.